Good morning. Let's call the meeting to order for the Deschutes County Board of County Commissioners. It's Wednesday, May 15th, 2024. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we'll now have citizen input. Daniel Baca. Thank you, Daniel, for joining us again today.
Do I need to get my address and stuff like last time, or is it?
Well, it's in the record. We know you live in Bend on the east side.
I talked with you guys before about agricultural buildings, and I've been informed by Will Groves that this is more an appropriate meeting in order to speak about that in regards to your development draft of your financial year 2024-2025. My request is that you remove the language or policy that states that a farm or a piece of property that.
Can I just interrupt real quick? I apologize, Chair Adair. This is also that I believe it's responsive to number 7. And it might be more appropriate to have him testify unless he's unavailable.
That's what I'm here for, number 7.
Oh, well, then you need to wait.
Okay.
Well, so public hearing on that matter is coming up. There we go.
Number 7. Okay, thank you, Danielle. Sorry about that. No other blue forms from the room. Stephen, is anyone with a raised hand? No raised hands. Okay. I have a statement to read. It is with great sadness today that the Board of County Commissioners acknowledge the passing of our former county clerk, Susie Penhallow. After serving her community as a deputy clerk for more than 10 years, Mary Sue Chop Penhallow, or Susie, was elected as the Deschutes County Clerk and served an additional 20 years from 1982 to 2002. During her time as county clerk, she worked to improve the election process in Central Oregon, advocating for mail-in ballots and encouraging the public to become better informed voters. Susie was a respected member of the Oregon Association of County Clerks and was active in that community, serving as the association's president in 1992. Susie also had the opportunity to travel to other countries and witness democracy in the making. She observed and supervised elections in Albania, Ukraine, and Macedonia. Susie was also a pioneer in record keeping as she brought Deschutes County into the 21st century by introducing the public to online real property records. Following in the shoes of her father-in-law, Judge Penny Penhallow, Susie performed countless marriage ceremonies. Susie was a native Bendite. She attended the old St. Francis School, which is now occupied by McMenavins in Bend, and was a 1962 graduate of Bend Senior High School. She was a very active member of the community, volunteering for the Deschutes Historical Society, the League of Women Voters, and raising money for numerous scholarships. She also served as the Grand Marshal of the Bend Christmas Parade in 2017. And one other thing that I thought was incredibly personal for our community is that Steve Dennison told me Susie's ballot had actually arrived in the clerk's office before she passed. So she was still voting, and, she lived her entire life as a model citizen. So the entire Deschutes County family sends out our most sincere condolences to the Penhallow family. Susie will be dearly missed.
Thank you for that statement. A couple other notes. I got to know Susie pretty well during the centennial of Deschutes County. So 2016, she was involved with the Historical Society board, but we had events all around the county. So I saw Susie many times that summer of 2016. And then also throughout the years at the county fairgrounds, she'd be zigzagging around in a cart and smiling and waving at everybody. And she knew everybody also. So yeah, it's really sad to see our friend Susie Penhallow leave us.
I'd also add that far on into her retirement, Susie was an incredible leader at the Deschutes County chapter of the League of Women Voters, helping to make that group a strong, nonpartisan civic engagement organization in our community. And I know she'll be missed there as well.
And I would like to make a comment after last week's hour presentation from our health department regarding the effects of marijuana on our children. The Wall Street Journal, the weekend edition, had an article. If you can search and Google it, it's called "What You Aren't Hearing About Marijuana." It was a weekend interview with someone who works for Harvard Medical School and has been working on marijuana. She's now in her 80s, and she's really hoping that people will follow the science. So it's called "What You Aren't Hearing About Marijuana." Thank you so much. No raised hands still. Okay, let's go to the consent agenda.
Move approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
Any further discussion? Commissioner DeBonne, or do you have something, Commissioner
I
Chang?
mean, I'm going to vote in support of all these items, but I just want to mention that the first item, the application for a Justice Reinvestment Program supplemental funding grant, was processed or reviewed by the local public safety coordinating council before it came here for our review, and that group was very much in support of this supplemental grant application.
Okay, thank you for that. For the vote, Commissioner DeBonne,
Yes.
Commissioner Chang,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. So let's now go to item number 6. Thank you, Dan and Laura.
This one's quite a package here. Even smaller font.
Yes.
Are there a lot of changes from?
Just a few. Yep. And we'll go over those.
Did you put them in purple or something?
The updated changes are highlighted in yellow.
Yellow. Okay, thank you very much. That was a good idea.
Department.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. So Laura Skundrick, Management Analyst.
Dan Emerson, Budget and Financial Planning Manager.
And today we're here to review the proposed fee schedule for fiscal year 25. This includes changes from departments based on factors such as inflationary increases or local, state, and federal mandates. This is an annual process for departments, which the board then reviews prior to adopting next year's budget. The proposed fee changes in front of you today are reflected in the proposed budget, which were distributed to you earlier this week. In today's meeting materials is the proposed fiscal year 25 fee schedule showing the departments with departments with proposed changes to their fees, and any department making what they considered were significant changes also provided a memo, which can be found at the end of your packets today. So after these materials were provided, I did receive several updates from CDD. So with today's handout, we can start by going over those if you'd like.
Sure.
So these new changes are reflected in yellow highlights. Starting on page 1, there are 3 Bend Parks and Rec SDC fees that were believed to be being removed, but are actually going to stay and increase. Those are CDD 23, 28, and 34, respectively for SDCs for ADUs, hotel motels, and manufactured and mobile home placement permits. And then moving down to the environmental soils section on page 9 of this handout. The DEQ on-site surcharges will increase from $100 to $117 effective August 1st of 2024. These are included on our fee schedule as a courtesy, and legal suggested that we include both fees with their effective dates. So you'll see at the top, the $100 is effective through July 2024. And then under that is effective beginning August of 2024, August 1st of 2024, the $117.
So shouldn't it go in the right column then?
Yes,
Because it's in the first.
it would be, yes, technically a new fee.
Okay,
You're correct.
all right, so it should go over there.
Thank you.
Well, Laura,
Yes,
what if I didn't find something right?
I know.
It's like,
Okay. Yes. So for all, any other departments proposing changes, they're all available here, either in the room or via Zoom if you have any questions.
So we need to bring up people individually then if we have I know there's an analysis before that I thought I should have read, with the description of way they did raise things. I noticed that some of the things were raised, 18% standard. What I found fascinating though, was that effective April 1st of 2024, average construction cost per square foot decreased 1%. So that's in the CDD on page 60. And anyhow, it looks like somewhat they're getting costs for building under control. Because remember, they were going up quite a bit. But that was probably the only word where I saw decrease on it. Dan, were you aware of any other places?
And we can go either page by page, or if you commissioners have had time to review this, we can look at it as a whole document and see if there's any recommendations at this point in time. And as Laura said, departments are here too, if there's any specific questions.
So yeah, I was able to review this. The memos are very informative. I'm kind of in that spot where, yeah, we can go through the whole thing. I'm wondering if anybody wants to really get out and, explain the big picture. And I think of health. I mean, you guys have, a nice broad, set of fees here that if there's anything you want to say about any specific things, but as I say, everything's kind of backed up real well in these memos this year.
I did have a question about some health things. I was there were like two things with the exact same description, and yet there were two prices for them. And let's see, I have them paper clipped. And so I was going, well, how do you know which one is? It says it's new.
Pages.
It's page 30 or page 59, of the packet, Cheryl. It says mental health assessment by non-physician, and it's per service. And then the enactment and authority are the same, and yet there's two different prices. One's $123.15, and then the other one is $153.94. So I thought, okay, there's got to be something that I'm missing. So you would know which one of those codes you're going to use. It's either code 58 or code 60. Item number 58 and 60. Well, it's on page 30 of the actual
30 of the fee schedule,
fee schedule
57 of our
packet. And then there's actually another one on that same page.
I believe that's community justices section.
It is. Great. Thank you. Sorry, Cheryl. I was like, how do they know which one to bill?
So for the record, my name is Trevor Stevens from the Community Justice Department. And so with those, it's based on the credentials of the medical director that's providing the oversight. So depending on, because we don't have a contracted medical director yet. So depending on their credentials, we'll determine how we can bill that. So depending on their credentials, if it's a higher credential, then you bill at a higher rate. If it's a lower credential, then you bill at a lower rate. So that's the difference between those two.
Okay. And so that you'll know that at the time.
At the time of the billing, once we know who actually provide the oversight. Yeah.
I just, I'm going like, they're identical. So there's got to be something more that
there's probably a few of those actually like that, because it'll depend and fluctuate based on the credentials of the individual that's actually being billed under. So
it's great to understand.
Okay. Thank you
Trevor,
for that.
while we're looking at this section, this whole bundle of behavioral health and substance use disorder treatment fees, what I was trying to figure out is, so these are new services that we're going to be providing?
Yeah, so we are still working with Pacific Source and OHA on our approval. So the recommendation from them was to include all of them. And then once we do the negotiations, they'll narrow it down to specifically what we can bill for. Our goal will likely be to bill for our family functional therapy and our SUD services. And so then once we get the OHA and Pacific Source approval, we can negotiate exactly those rates. And then this will likely reduce the next year, because it'll be very specific on which rates we will be able to bill under. But they recommended that we provide all those rates until we know exactly which ones they're going to allow us to bill under.
And we will be, this is a rate schedule, but will the Health Council be the entity who we then bill for the
Pacific Source or OHP basically is who will be billed for it. Yeah.
And these are, we have not offered these services before, or
We have offered FFT therapy, but we have never billed for it from the Community Justice Department, and we have not offered SUD services from the Community Justice Department. So this will be the first time that we actually bill for services. I think probably before my time, so probably 9 years ago, they were billing for some services, but we have not billed in the last 7 years for any services that we provide.
and these won't, and we're not actually billing the families of the youth who are receiving the treatment services.
No, it'll be billed to Pacific Source.
Well, that seems like a good thing for us to be able to recover some revenue for services that we're providing.
Yeah, we're hoping to just offset some of the cost of the services that we actually provide. So, yeah.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, it does. Very interesting. You have to know the rest of the story. I was just wondering, okay, so the health billable rates are actually, it says going up 22%, but they're all mandated by the state. So that seems, I know that some of our CDD increases were at 18%. And of course, we know how inflation is.
Going back to those Ben Park and Rec SDC fees, I'm just curious why CDD is charging SDC fees for this one kind of infrastructure, but I know we collect SDCs on other kinds of for other kinds of infrastructure as well on new development. So how come this Ben Park and Rec one gets stuck in here?
Good morning, Commissioner Sherry Pinner for Community Development. So CDD lists as a courtesy for citizens any of the fees that we collect on partnering jurisdictions. So for example, Ben Park and Rec SDCs as well as transportation SDCs, we collect those at the counter and remit that money to those organizations monthly.
Okay. But, for example, I mean, we might charge SDCs for our road department work. We might also, I know like the Ben Lapine School District is collecting SDC, I believe is collecting SDCs for, new schools. So why does this one district show up in your, within your kind of fiscal administration responsibilities?
So it's my understanding that it's to communicate to citizens the fees that they will be charged at the counter at CDD. So it's I don't know the history of when those came on board, but this arrangement has been in existence for as long as I've been at CDD, and I've been led to understand that it's a courtesy service that we offer, so that there's easier coordination between the jurisdictions on when fees are paid, when permits can be released. If we control the collection of those fees, we know when the permits are paid and when they can be released. And again, those funds are remitted to each jurisdiction monthly.
Okay. Thanks.
And Sherry, remind us, how long have you been with the county?
23 years.
Yes.
Going on 24.
So thank you so much for your service. I know you are a crucial part of the team.
Thank you.
And yes, your reports are always timely and so appreciate.
Thank you.
Any other
As I
questions?
say, it's a great package. It is already plugged into the budget this year. Community development was discussed before this, even previously, kind of looking for guidance. So this is, publicly available for anybody that wants to, review. And I know sometimes the Builders Association or other people in that industry really want to know what's going on with the numbers.
Dan, I don't think you can answer this question, but the statement was made that it was costing OSET $15,000 to have their event at Rimrock Riders. And they were quoting $15,000 versus $10,000 at the Deschutes County Fairgrounds. And yet when I looked at the fairgrounds fees, I'm thinking that no, it's not going to be $10,000 for their I think usually it's a 4-day horse show. So do you have any idea? Should I just put a request in so that they realize that they need to compare?
I mean, we can certainly reach out to Jeff Hines and Fair Expo and talk about the Rimrock and how they came to that. How they came to that.
I think it was a number from a while ago is what they were comparing, but it looks like our fees are higher and perhaps they're giving us a bit of a break because it is the youth of Deschutes County.
Mhm.
So, and Central Oregon. So anyway, yeah, I just was looking at the fair rental fees. Well,
Jeff's actually online right now. If you want to ask.
There you go.
oh, hi, good morning, Jeff.
Good morning, commissioners. I apologize. I'm not there in person to join you this morning, but thank you for the question regarding kind of the OSET one. I believe the payment or the fee schedule that they're referring to for OSET dates back to prior to 2019. And clearly since that time, we've had some increases in fees for the use of the property since then. Utilizing what I believe would be the current rate that we would apply for a 4-day event, they would be at the 4,000 per day usage. And so that would either be 12 or 18,000 under the current fee schedule. Now, we do often come up with reduced rates for other groups, including nonprofits and youth groups. So that's kind of the rack rate that we would start with and might be able to come up with something cheaper. But I don't know that we would be significantly reduced down from what they're paying at Rimrock at this time.
Great. Oh, thanks. Thank you, Jeff, for clarifying that because that's what I thought after I was looking at the schedule. I was thinking like, well, yes, prior to 2019. Okay, that was quite a while ago. But thank you. Thanks for being available.
Of course, thank you.
Are there any other comments?
I guess I'd just say, so I reviewed this pretty closely. I didn't see any increases that seemed really dramatic. So I would be curious to hear if, we have an upcoming public hearing, but are we hearing rumblings from anyone out in the community that they're concerned about the increases that are being proposed here?
I personally have not heard any rumblings from anyone that would be affected in the community by these fees.
Well, and this is a little bit of inflation being plugged into our budget again. So, I mean, as I say, it's backed up and justified, and it is in an inflationary environment for the cost of doing business. So that's what we're seeing.
Well, the fact that interest rates are jumping back up for the 30-year, and our rates are going up, it makes it really difficult for people to build homes. So it's like a catch, we just keep trying to catch up and, yeah, we're circling.
If the rates aren't mandated, they're based on the actual cost of service. And as the actual cost of service and inflation goes up, then the rates follow that.
Right. So it is fascinating that the square foot cost did decrease. That was, I was glad to see that something's going down. So thank you. Let's see, review and discuss. So then we don't have a motion today. We need a motion. Okay, before July 1st. Okay, great. Thank you. And we're now at item number 7.
Madam Chair, members of the commission, for the record, Peter Gutowski, Community Development Director. And this next item pertains to the Community Development Department's draft fiscal year 2024-2025 work plan. I'm going to be relatively brief in my opening remarks. This is a public hearing to take testimony on our work plan as it pertains to our 4 divisions. Planning, on-site wastewater, the building division, and coordinated services. On Monday, I was appreciative that the board allowed us to, myself and our managers, to briefly highlight a couple of accomplishments from calendar year 2023 and to talk about some projects that they've identified that are important for the community for next fiscal year. For those that are in the audience and listening online, the Community Development Department creates a work plan every year. We coordinate with Eric Brion and now Kim Ketcher to promote the work plan, to generate public input. The Planning Commission did hold a hearing this spring and deliberate on the work plan. They typically are focusing primarily on the long range planning work plan, which typically generates the most comments. To date, the comments that we've received really focused with the city of Redmond and underscoring the coordination that goes with the Core 3 project, urbanization. I think that's a reflection on the fact that the community is well aware of what we're tackling, especially on the long range side of things. We're doing clear and objective standards, which stems from House Bill 3197 as it pertains to residential development. We have plans to update the Newberry Country Plan, which is an area plan for Southern Deschutes County. There's a list of housekeeping amendments that we are wanting to undertake, and Will Groves, the planning manager, is here if you have any follow-up questions. And then this is recently announced. Commissioner Chang forwarded some emails to staff yesterday. We're well aware of the state wildfire mitigation map or hazard map. There's going to be public processes that we're going to be tracking, and that will lead to some amendments to the comprehensive plan at a minimum. I guess just to round this up, and then I'll turn it over to the chair and the commission for any questions. But the work plan is informed by multi-year projects that carry over. An example of that is the comprehensive plan update, which is currently before the board, but it's on kind of the final legs of that legislative process. The transportation system plan update was a multi-year process. That's another example. We receive feedback from, of course, community members. It's informed by the boards. The board has annual goals and objectives, so we're very mindful of those, and other projects that are correlated to grants. So very excited to have this hearing and allow the public to share their viewpoints. What's happened in the past, if this is acceptable to the board, is to consider closing the hearing for any oral testimony, but keeping the written record open for a week or two, just to ensure that we're getting adequate time for the public to respond. If they have projects that they want to identify and highlight, a suggestion would be May 29th, which is a Wednesday at 4:00. And for any written testimony or written comments, and then I'll come back in June to work with the board to finalize the work plan and get it posted. So thank you for this opportunity. I know you have a full agenda. I know you have we have a resident that wants to provide some feedback. So thanks for this opportunity, and I'm available for any questions if and when you have them.
Thank you, Peter. Okay. It looks like we can now open the public hearing. We don't have to give the rules then.
It's not land use.
Okay, no rules. But if you are online, you can raise your hand to testify. Daniel, it is now your opportunity. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
And how are you doing tomatoes now?
Yes, they're not doing that great this year, though.
I was
Not
wondering.
yet.
Ground gnats, and
Oh,
that's
gnats.
quite a battle. So they have the worms that eat all the roots of your tomatoes, and you see them flying around, and it's not very good. But there's got to keep trying. It's what you got to do. So, Daniel Baca, I live at 23795 Bear Creek Road, out on the east side of Bend. I spoke with you guys before about agricultural buildings, and I've been informed by Nicole Mardell and Will Groves that this is a more appropriate venue in order to speak about that subject, because this is your guys' work plan. So my request is that, and I want to be able to build an agricultural building on my property. And I'm not able to do this due to the fact that my property is not in tax deferment. And this was a inside policy made when the counties were able to define what a farm was. And there's no recourse for me to get into tax deferment because I pulled a conditional use permit in order to build my house. I feel like there's other language in there that defines a farm that I think is wonderful language in there, saying that you need to be trying several different things that qualify, doing equine, doing poultry, having, Christmas trees. I love that language, but this one particular piece is a giant barrier, and it does not allow the building of an agricultural building, and there's no pathway for me in order to get past that. It creates a direct impasse, especially in an endeavor that doesn't get much money. Farming here in Deschutes County, I actually do not know of any people that make an entire living off of farming. It's always, hey, I'm a carpenter and I'm also a farmer, or I'm a principal and I'm a farmer. You guys as well probably own potentially exclusive farm use properties or MUA because you talked about having agricultural buildings on your properties, yet you're county commissioners. It's a dying industry, and I think anything that we can do in order to improve it and to make it more financially feasible, the better. I spoke, like I said, with Will Groves, and he's here, I guess, and he has he could probably talk to you guys about some more of the technical aspects of this, because he was saying that this is not just an isolated incident, that there's several people that have expressed this concern, and also the county assessor has concern with this because everybody gets bounced back and forth between them and the county assessor, and it's, like I did. And if you'd like to speak with him, that'd be wonderful as well. Any questions?
So what's your zone?
EFU.
So it is exclusive farm use, because I was thinking maybe it's MUA 10.
Nope. It's got
And
farm.
so you don't have farm deferral. And that's why the answer is you're not allowed to create a new ag exempt building. So then it boils down to an ag exempt building I envision is a structure built without permits for structural loading and then insurability also. So your intention is to build a structure to house farming equipment, or would it be a greenhouse also, or what's
I
the?
would love to incorporate a greenhouse in it. Yes. Instead of starting my tomatoes in my dining room. Yeah. Yes, it would incorporate.
So it'd be multi-function agricultural building.
Yes, which is why I'm not necessarily calling it strictly a barn or strictly a greenhouse, because it's going to have tractors in it. It's going to have, poultry in it. It's going to have, vegetable starts in it and things like that. So.
Could we bring Will up to talk about how to navigate this?
Yes, Will, what is it we can do?
Mhm.
Daniel, I appreciate your passion, and I know about tomatoes. And I on a small scale.
Good morning, Chair, Commissioners. For the record, Will Groves, your planning manager. Nice to see you in person, Daniel. So in the building code, there is an allowance for agricultural structures that are allowed to be constructed with significantly less review. And these are afforded to farm and forest operations when a farm and forest operation exists and that structure is in support of that farm and forest operation. You're potentially eligible for this reduced permitting opportunity. One of the things that's not clear in the building code is how you make a determination if something is a farm and forest operation or forest operation. And so different jurisdictions have approached this differently. In our jurisdiction, we went through an extensive process before the Board of County Commissioners with public input years ago and settled on farm tax deferral as the threshold for determining that farm activity. The advantage of that is that it's relatively clear. Disadvantage is, of course, that it results in some people are very plainly engaged in a farm operation not being eligible for these structures. We've been exploring, I've in the past week been exploring with the assessor and looking at other jurisdictions, how they approach this, as well as we've had some discussions with legal. And it may be possible to, there's two ways, if the commission wanted to address this. One is that we may be able, through the existing definition, to add some categories by which someone might be allowed to get a structure. As we've had the discussion with legal, the current definition says you are eligible if you are on farm deferral, but it doesn't say you're not eligible if you're not on farm deferral. So we could, as a matter of policy, potentially open some gateways to people who, some ideas would be went through a planning review where they demonstrated their farming operation. We've had to do that in some cases where if a landowner is looking to start an operation, they say, hey, I'm looking to start a horse breeding operation. I have no farm use on my property, but I need a barn to put the horses in as an opening move. The state statute says you need to go through a land use process to explain that this structure, which is presently accessory to nothing, will be accessory to a farm use that will exist when the structure exists. And we could use a parallel process, I believe, for some of our farmers who aren't in farm tax deferral who aren't in farm tax deferral to basically explain their farming operation. And then we've made a decision that there is a farm operation to which we could point to. Another way that we're exploring with the assessor is to look at for people who would be eligible for farm tax deferral, but are precluded by virtue of having a non-farm dwelling permit. So basically they're engaging in the requisite level of economic activity associated with the farming operation, but they've been precluded from that tax advantage. That we could use that potentially as a sign, and we're working through that as an indicator that this is what a farm operation constitutes. In the alternative, and maybe as a supplement to this, we could go through another legislative process where we change the words, where we explain under which someone's eligible for one of these structures. And wow, jurisdictions pick a real variety of ways to approach this. Some of this is self-certification. Almost all of them include a non-conversion agreement that says, hey, you got this exempt structure, you can't be turning it into something else. And that's a real problem. So when you think about people who come in and don't want to get a building permit, with surprising regularity, there are people who want to turn that structure into an apartment or other unlawful use. And so, our building official could speak at some length about the kind of the frequency with which these structures don't end up in agricultural use, and the avoidance of a building permit is an avoidance of a review of the sort that would catch those types of conversions. So definitely some opportunities and challenges there. I think we're exploring on ways to get people who are clearly farmers through the door under the existing code, to the extent that either is precluded or doesn't result in the kind of the right mix of people being eligible for these structures. We could then bring back to you, under your direction, a work plan item to revisit the language under which someone's determined to have a farm or forest operation.
So this is not currently an item in this draft work plan.
That's correct. So you would, kind of in deliberations, in association with the work plan, if you were interested in this, you could provide direction to see if it could be resolved under the current language, in coordination with legal and finance, or as necessary, explore legislative changes to allow this to work more effectively for our farmers.
I would have hoped we would have done this like 5 years ago. Honestly, I don't know how long you've been struggling with this issue, Danielle, but yes, when someone has that passion, and it does take passion to be a farmer in America, because you have to get up really early, and some days you have to work really late, and you have to get it done when the weather is cooperating. So, whatever you think would work for those people in Deschutes County, so they don't have to be in deferral, but they can still have this opportunity. I would be all in support.
I appreciate that. And I'm definitely, we're sort of in the exploring options phase here. The planning option, would involve a declaratory ruling. That's nearly a $2,000 application that takes, up to 6 months to process. At that point, I think many people would just get the permit. I think that's a clearer pathway to move forward in terms of cost and time. So one of the options I described is likely to be unattractive. The one of trying to use the existing definition in the ways I described may be more usable.
Well, as I say, I support this ask. It gets pretty tightly wound with our history of state land use, but it sounds like we've already thought through many avenues on this. So this is a public hearing for the work plan for the next year. And I mean, I support proceeding, whatever that looks like right now also.
Yeah,
One thing I'd
if
like
we-
to note that Will spoke about, that a lot of people are taking these structures and they're converting them into apartments, and that to me, that almost is like an indicator of the lack of finances in farming, that people think that they need to supplement their income with apartments, and it just again shows the financial burden on farming. And I definitely do not condone people converting their stuff to barn dominiums and RV storage and things like that. It should be used for agricultural purposes, but again, it just shows the disparity there.
Yeah, I mean, if we can add a project to the menu that we have here, and it's not a guarantee that we can actually prioritize it and allocate resources to get it done this year, but at least we can add a project and to the menu so that we can consider it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you for being passionate about what you're doing, and hopefully we can help you make that conversion so that your house has fewer tomato plants in it.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Or the options to grow more will be
Yes.
magnified, definitely. Is there anyone else that would care to testify on this? Do we have anyone with raised hands? No. Okay. Peter, back at the table.
Yeah, thank you again, commissioners. So it's entirely up to you. I know that the county has promoted this opportunity for public input. So it really comes down to, you have a large agenda today, and I'm not at all suggesting that you get into deliberations this morning, but it really comes down to, would you like to keep the record open? If so, for how long?
Well, we're going to close the public hearing,
For oral testimony.
oral testimony only, and then you suggested to keep it open for 2 weeks to May 29th at 4 p.m., which makes perfect sense because perhaps there are other people out there that are trying to do the same thing Daniel's been talking about with us, and to give them an opportunity to let us know this is really important. When you think of like the farmers market is, I believe, open this afternoon in Bend, and what are those people under major, capacity restraints in what they're providing here to our community? And if we could help them, that would be great.
Staff is very open to that approach. And if that's acceptable to the rest of the commission, we would come back in June to continue the conversation around acknowledging the work plan to inform not just planning, but all the divisions projects that they want to address in fiscal year 2025. So thank you for that consideration.
Well, I support leaving the written record open and closing the oral portion.
That works for me.
Okay, so it's unanimous. So we can do that. And Daniel, don't give up on us. We hear what you are attempting to do, and yes, and you're not talking about deferring taxes. You're actually talking about paying your taxes. So, it seems like it's a win-win.
Great. Commissioners, I'll return in the month of June to continue this conversation. Thank you for your time.
Well, just one other statement about the document. It is a good introduction to the big picture. The names and the job description, or the titles of each person, their email address for each department. It helps really understand the kind of how this all lays together if somebody's interested in building or just has experience with a builder to get permits from us. This sure explains the big picture. So I really appreciate this document as a work product also.
Yeah, thank you. It captures our mission statement, which is to coordinate development activity subject to our jurisdiction. And like you said, Commissioner, we are transparent about what we are prioritizing. We have contact information, and that will be updated. The version that I bring back in June will identify our newer employees, and there's some red lines there just as placeholders. So you'll have a full document. So thank you for calling
Great.
that out.
Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Let's now go to item number 8, the lithium battery management. Thank you, Sherry.
Good morning, Chair, Commissioners. For the record, Tim Brownell, Director of the Solid Waste Department, here for Deschutes County. And so this agenda item before you is to address how to address sustainable battery management here in the county and in the state. For background, we were approached by Lane County in the last couple of weeks to discuss support of having the Association for Oregon Counties add as to their legislative priorities the introduction of a bill to the 2025 Oregon legislature to establish an extended producer responsibility framework for consumer batteries. And in particular, the batteries of concern are lithium batteries, rechargeable batteries.
So this is battery recycling and disposal we're
Correct.
talking about. Because as I say, when I first saw the title, I thought, you know, battery management is charging a battery or discharge rates or, you know, the technology of how to use a battery, but this is disposal of a battery.
That's correct, for the responsible management of that stream. And I'll speak a little bit to first to what is an extended producer responsibility framework? What does that mean? So extended producer responsibility it's a policy approach that assigns producers greater responsibility for the end-of-life management of products they introduce to the market and encourage innovations in product design so that EPR really fosters the responsible management, the responsible disposal, and the possibility of the reduction of this waste stream in general. We have examples of extended producer responsibility already in the state. Electronic wastes are handled in this manner. Paint care, paint is handled in this manner. Mattresses are about to be managed throughout the county and the state in this manner, in which the producers at the point of purchase have fees related in that purchase to supplement and support the management and disposal and recycling of those materials at end of life. So we're currently operating systems like that. The Recycling Modernization Act, which is coming into place next year, is also an example of producers getting involved in the system, supporting the system financially, so the burden isn't borne just by the ratepayers. It's actually a shared model where ratepayers as well as manufacturers and municipalities are all involved in the management system. Right now, it is solely on local government to basically manage the flow of these materials. There are a few benefits to taking this approach. One is we really are moving towards the electrification of many aspects of our economy, whether it's transportation, but it's also moving into places like greeting cards and vape pens and toys that we have these either single use or rechargeable batteries that requires a lithium, which is an extracted material. We have limits to how much lithium is going to be found and mined in the United States. Most of it is coming from export. So this would be one of the benefits, is making this material more accessible to manufacturers in the United States. Locally, what the big issue that we're having with batteries is the hazardous nature of particularly lithium batteries, which cause fires when compacted. So we are having on average about one fire a week out at the landfill or in our transfer stations. And that's from batteries that are either, it could be an e-bike. We've had one from a Prius battery. But most of them are embedded products in embedded batteries in products like cell phones, greeting cards, etc. When run over by equipment, they will explode and cause fires. Most cases, they're very small. We've had a couple instances over the last 10 years in which we've had our transfer trailers catch fire, and we've had to get them out of the buildings, out to the landfill and extinguish them. We have fires on the landfill, smoke, what we call smokers, that we have to dig out and put out. We've had collection vehicles that come onto our site in what we call hot loads, where they have to come off route and get to either a parking lot or ideally to the landfill site where it's an open space and can be managed appropriately. But this issue is growing exponentially as we see more and more products, rechargeable vacuum cleaners, et cetera, that are coming into our waste stream. So this, what we're looking for is to see if there's a legislative approach to bring manufacturers into the management system, so there's greater education, greater awareness. We're only recovering about 15% of all rechargeable batteries that are currently put into the system. 85% are being disposed of through traditional disposal systems.
Are you talking about Deschutes County or Oregon or the
This
world?
is nationally. In Deschutes County, I couldn't tell you what that number is, but I wouldn't say that we're even at 15%. We are currently, any ones that we are currently handling are coming in through our household hazardous waste facility. In 2020, that cost for disposal for the county was about $20,000. 2023, that disposal costs increased to about $40,000. This year, we're anticipating our disposal costs will be $60,000. It's only going to grow. That then is borne by ratepayers and users of our facilities. We'd like to see that there's participation from industry in managing this waste stream.
So the dynamic is it's getting very expensive to help manage that disposal. But if we put a fee on here that says we're going to charge you $1 to recycle this battery, it'll just end up in the garbage, right? I mean, that's kind of the catch-22 we're in.
If it's done through a legislative approach, it will be embedded in the cost of the product, but the producers will start to bear the cost.
Well, I'm just referring to, me as a consumer, I'm at home. Oh, I'm not, I'd like to recycle this battery. I want to bring it to the transfer station and drop it off for free. But the moment if we said, well, we'd like you to give us $1 to take your battery, it'll reduce the recycling probably, right? I'm just thinking on the ground here, why we're in this situation.
Well,
and it makes sense.
It would be on the front end when we buy the phone or we.
Oh, I know. Yeah, that's what we're talking about is that next solution. But I'm just backtracking why we're in this situation.
Yeah, I think that partly people aren't aware that some of these products are exactly what they are in greeting cards. People don't really think about, they like the fact that it says happy birthday to you out loud, but that's a lithium ion battery in most cases. So the risk that we have is we develop infrastructure, recycling, solid waste, et cetera. That infrastructure is at risk due to fire. So for example, recycling facilities throughout the country are in this situation that if you are in a self-insured company, it's becoming more and more difficult, certainly more expensive, but even difficult to secure insurance for facilities, because these recycling facilities are dealing with highly flammable materials and they are getting batteries into that mix. So really what this is trying to do is bring producers in to be able to help it, particularly in the awareness and education, and then building the systems to make the recycling of those items more accessible. You know, where we're really challenged are by those embedded products where the customer can't take that battery out. They don't know where it is. It's not accessible. They aren't aware of the issue that creates. We see that in e-bikes all the time. And when we run over them, that's not a smoker, that's a fire.
Yeah.
So I was hearing on the radio I think it was last week, that an e-bike had caught on fire in the stairwell, and they said, "Oh, be sure and always have your e-bike in your apartment." And I'm thinking like, "Oh, so your apartment's going to catch on fire?" I mean, you know, what's going to have the more combustible material?
Yeah, I mean, this is an issue that if you talked with Bend Fire Department, they're very concerned about the issue of rechargeable batteries and rechargeable battery storage, but also particularly end of life. So the ask is that on June 3rd there is a AOC meeting, and the request is that we support the initiative to ask them to be involved in the presentation of this in the 2025 legislative agenda.
Tim, when you said lithium batteries are costing the department approximately $60,000 a year to dispose of, that's just the batteries that come in through the right channel through our household hazardous waste.
That's
program.
correct.
And that's not considering the costs of all these fires that, you know, in trucks, out in landfill and other places.
That's correct. Yeah, so it's just for the responsible management of the materials that we currently receive that are properly disposed of.
So Tim, I have a
Fiscal
question.
impacts. So the fiscal impacts of this are potentially substantially greater than 60,000.
Yeah, if we're
fire response and insurance costs and premium costs, et cetera, et cetera. Okay.
Correct.
So I have a question about the batteries from the dark ages. You know, the ones that you only use once and then they're dead. Are those supposed to go in a special spot?
We accept them at all of the depots.
Mhm.
Yeah, and there is a special spot for those. And we aren't asking people to separate the alkaline batteries from NiCad from lithium at whether it's at the household hazardous waste facility or at our drop-offs. We'll do that separation. We just are encouraging all batteries to be
Okay.
brought to our facilities.
Okay, I love that you repeated that message so that everyone would know
Yep.
that they really aren't supposed to go in your trash.
They are not.
Not.
Yep.
That's exactly what I thought.
Well, I support proceeding with this. It's all about education, knowledge, taking a legislative position, saying this is important to have producer responsibility. That'll be a legislative decision.
Right.
So, but you'll be going in saying you like this idea because it's going to reduce the cost of our disposal system.
Right.
So, as I say, I don't mind having this discussion.
Thank you.
With that, I'll move approval of support for the Association of Oregon Counties to lead in the introduction of a bill to the 2025 Oregon Legislature to establish an extended producer responsibility framework for consumer batteries.
I'll second it.
Is there any further discussion?
Just acknowledging, this is education for citizens also. We can improve the situation today by understanding where the batteries are and recycling instead of just disposal.
And we can, that is an eligible use for the funds that'll come in through the extended producer responsibility program, correct?
Correct. Yes.
All right, calling for the vote. Commissioner Chang,
Yes.
Commissioner DeBonne,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. And it's amazing that they actually haven't done this like a year or two before, because it seems like you hear about it all the time now, what a problem we have with the batteries and end of life. So thank you, Tim. Thanks for
Oh,
being here.
Thank you for listening.
Oh, you might want to say something about Fire Free, just so that we get the dates out there again, if you wouldn't
Have it in
mind.
your head.
Yeah. We just completed the Fire Free event at Not Landfill in Bend. But we will be having Fire Free events at Southwest Transfer outside of Lapine and Negus Transfer, which will be Friday, May 31st through June 8th, Sunday, June 8th, or Saturday, June 8th. We will be closed on Monday at both of those sites. And then at our Northwest Transfer Station off Priory Road, that will be Friday, May 31st, Saturday, June 1st, and then starting again on Wednesday, I believe that's June 5th, through Saturday, the 8th.
Great. Thank you so
Right.
much.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Item number 9.
Good morning, Commissioners. Janice Garceau, Director of Health Services. And I do have 2 of my Health Information Technology team members who will be joining us virtually because they're away at a conference right now. So if there's some specific questions for that team, they're here on hand to answer. We are here today to request approval to apply for a community capacity building grant. This particular grant, there's a long narrative here about where these dollars come from, but basically, the state receives dollars from the federal government for Medicaid. We are able, through an 1115 waiver, to get flexibility in how those dollars are expended. And in the most recent version of the 1115 waiver, dollars were identified to meet health-related social needs. So we're calling those HRSN, HRSN. And there's 2 sort of phases to the process. One is to help programs establish capacity to participate in making things available to people through these funds. And then later will be the capacity to bill for or draw down those resources for members of the community who receive OHP and are in need. So for our particular grant, we are I'm skipping some of the first page because it's really background, but we're applying for the capacity building phase of the grant. It's an 18-month grant period. We're applying for an amount of $950,000. That funding can be applied to the development of technology, the development of business and operational practices, workforce development, outreach, education, and stakeholder convening. With this funding, DCHS will specifically build infrastructure to screen, collect, and analyze data to understand communities' health-related social needs, and establish formal pathways to refer individuals and families to community-based organizations to meet those needs. The infrastructure added with grant funds may also provide the opportunity later to bill Medicaid for activities and services associated with addressing health-related needs of enrolled clients with health services. The term for our application is September 1, 2024 through February 28, 2026. Funds will be applied to personnel. So it would add, in effect, a clinical information systems administrator. That's 1.0 existing FTE that would be in a lead role over this project to help develop the interface with our medical record, deploy the tablets that would be purchased with the grant, develop the workflows that are associated with using the referral platform that the CCO has selected for this opportunity, and other associated duties, just making sure that the system works, does what it's intended to do, and allows us to participate in getting these resources to individuals. We would also extend a public health educator existing FTE for the grant period for half-time for the initial phase of the grant and full-time for the latter part of the grant, in order to ensure that the outreach that needs to be done to the networks in the community that provide some of these basic needs is done, so that they're aware of how referrals can be received, they have capacity to receive referrals, et cetera. We have money built in to contract with someone to do project management if that is in fact needed. And we have some dollars built in for temporary help for our health information technology team, since we would be taking one FTE out of its normal work duties, which are significant, to lead this project while we're developing the technical capacity. We also have dollars built in to buy tablets and touchscreen devices that will be used to administer and interface with the platform. And when I say the platform, I'm talking about Unitas. This is a referral platform that our coordinated care organization has been in the process of adopting for some time and will be using to distribute these resources. There's some dollars built in for a data plan to make improvements to our health record system. So bottom line is, we do not want our clinicians entering data in two separate platforms. Part of the technical work of this grant will be to make sure that our systems can talk to each other and eliminate additional steps for a person who's in the field trying to make a referral for someone who needs nutrition services or heat or cooling services, et cetera. And then there's some dollars built in for indirect expenses. So that's all fairly technical. What this basically allows us to do is participate in the Oregon Health Plan's rollout of funds statewide to help meet health-related costs for individuals on OHP. So an example might be a senior citizen who is low income, who has emphysema and heart condition and is living in an unair conditioned space. So during a weather event, it would mean that a clinician who's working with that individual on a mental health issue could send a referral into the system and access an air conditioner for that person. That is a very inexpensive way to prevent much more significant interactions with the healthcare system. So I'm just trying to make it real so that you understand the intention of those dollars and how they would be used and how this builds our capacity to be able to participate in that on behalf of the people that we serve. And I have Nicole Lunetta, who is the supervisor of the Health Information Technology team, and Casey Burgess, who is a systems information analyst specialist. I'm probably getting the acronym wrong for her position, but they both have done a lot of work to help support our systems. And Casey in particular has worked at the state level on how to make the best use of health information systems to coordinate services in a region. So there are resident experts on this technology and what we're aiming for.
Janice, I have a question.
Yeah.
So you can get them an air conditioner, but then who's going to pay their electric bill? Because when you're running an air conditioning unit like that, I think it can be more expensive. And I was just thinking, are there funds to help them with their utility bill too then when they get that air conditioner, or are they just given the air conditioner?
Well, I think that's a really good question, and I don't know that we know the answer to that yet. So these are dollars that are just rolling out. They're sort of building the plane while they're flying, as often
Please don't say that.
occurs. Yeah, planes do still fly despite news to the contrary. But I think it's possible that there may be funds available to help offset medical costs. I know that there will be other or offset energy costs. I know that we already have entities in our community like Neighbor Impact that have programs that help people who are struggling to pay their energy bills. And I believe that they may be one of the entities also interested in these resources. We're not applying for the full amount available to the region. So it may be that these dollars can be applied to things like that as well. I just don't know.
Well, I was just thinking because we actually added air conditioning units, or they did at the Veterans Village, and
Energy costs went up.
Well, I'm sure they did because they are, they're small units and they're pretty, they're not as effective as some, a bigger unit.
Right.
Well, a lot of moving parts here, but I'm supportive of, more resources to help people in need.
Thanks.
Thank you for walking us through, data, information technology, all of that, and then giving us a concrete example of, a health outcome that might come from moving forward with these systems. Could you give us another one?
Another one.
Just to get, I mean, I do feel like I was tracking, kind of the need for better data management and collection and systems and information systems and things like that. But it's also, I am trying to really understand how all of that investment in those systems produces, meaningful health outcomes.
Yeah, I mean, the dollars eventually will cover not just climate related resources, but potentially nutrition down the road, also housing. So another potential application could be a young adult who has left home early because of a bad situation at home. They're staying at the loft. They may be enrolled in services with us because they have some mental health symptoms related to trauma. We can serve them, but we have limited resources to do things like pay a rental deposit for that individual, or help them with a housing cost, or help them with the several $100s it may cost them to fill out applications for apartments. So that may be a way that the housing dollars can be spent. And we have some programs now that do some of that for certain individuals, but they are limited in scope because they often come to us through service element contracts with some limitations or other limitations. The other thing is this would actually allow a clinician to bill for the time. It's not a huge amount, but to actually capture the work as a billable code that is involved in making such a referral for a resource. So you've heard us talk before about how much work our clinicians do. Probably close to 50% of the work that they do is work that can't be captured with a billable Medicaid code. This just allows another avenue to say, this is real work. This is real healthcare work done on behalf of a client. And there's a way to capture the cost of that with a reimbursable service. And I just want to pause and ask Casey if she has some other ideas. She's been really immersed in this work and may have some thoughts as well, because she's been talking too with community partners about this. So if you have a moment to hear from Casey, I think it might be helpful.
Great. Thank you, Casey.
Thank you. Good morning, commissioners. I would say some good examples would be also nutrition. We would be screening at all levels of the agency in the clinical setting and outreach setting to identify some areas of risk, like hunger, for instance, for that individual or their families, and be able to connect them with community resources to meet that need. So it's really about identifying these risk areas to ultimately improve the overall health and outcomes of these individuals. There's just a lot of data behind risk areas. Sorry.
Go ahead, Casey.
Stop for just a moment here.
So there's a lot of data
behind.
There's a lot of data behind meeting these needs to get these individuals to be able to actually respond to medical care and mental health interventions. And because if those barriers are in place for them, they're not as responsive to be able to take medication when needed and manage chronic disease. So it's really just removing those barriers to improve the overall health and outcomes for the individuals. And I'm sure we could come up with more specific examples if that's helpful.
No, those are great. Thank you.
And I think the bottom line, I think what Casey's referring to is that the bottom line is that we've all understood for a long time that it's really hard to talk with someone about their long-term mental health if they're hungry, unhoused, or struggling with a chronic condition where they're not able to get their needs met. So this is really an acknowledgement that helping people meet some basic needs is a way to help them be available for treatment. And we know that when we're addressing some of those basic needs, healthcare costs go down, period. Especially for those with chronic conditions, and those are often the folks that we're engaged with. Last thing I would point out is that we wrote this grant very mindful of the fact that it is one-time only funding. So we have not built in any new FTE. And we have tried to structure it so that when it ends, nobody is walking away without work to the best of our ability. And we're able to use existing resources and plug the dollars in a way that doesn't create a long-term commitment to an unfunded set of activities. That said, there will be some costs associated with continuing maintaining tablets. They're nominal and worth it, and probably something we need to do anyway to get into the 21st century, and this helps us do that. So.
Any other points you want to bring up today?
No, thank you.
Is there a motion?
I'm trying to figure out the organization that we're applying to is OHA.
The organization we're applying to, I believe, is the CCO. They're the pass-through entity for the dollars.
I'll move approval to apply for a Medicaid Section 1115 Community Capacity Building Grant.
And I'll second it.
Is there any further discussion? Commissioner Chang?
Yes.
Commissioner Devon?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. So
Thank you,
so much.
commissioners. Thank you, colleagues. Have fun at your conference. Thank you.
Okay, we're now at item number 10.
Good morning, commissioners. For the record, Hallie King, Associate Planner with Community Development. This next item before the board is to request board acceptance and signature on deeds of declaration related to a road dedication application. We brought this as a work session item to the board on Monday. Essentially, this is the final step in the legal road creation process for a staff-approved road dedication land use application filed 247-23-000-819-RD. And the staff decision was approved and final on March 6, 2024. No appeals were received, so the decision is final. And again, the final step here is for the board to essentially accept the deeds. And the applicant will then go to record. One kind of point of clarification here is we did confirm, as discussed on Monday, only 2 of the 3 deeds have the property owner's signature. And in coordination with legal counsel, the board will not be able to accept that 3rd unsigned deed because we require owner signature on that prior to recordation. There was a chance that property owner was going to sign that and turn it in today, but that just didn't happen. So
We're talking about Ms. Martin.
Correct. Yeah. And that's document 2024-408. So at this time, we would recommend the board move to accept the declaration of dedications for document 2024-345 and document 2024-407. And with that, happy to answer any questions for the commissioners.
What does it look like going forward then? We would just bring this back for the next document?
No, that's a great question, Commissioner DeBone. We essentially what their option would be is either they would need to reapply because they're up against this 120-day time limit. They would need to possibly reapply to get that other 30 feet on Miss Morton's property. Or what they can do is the property owner has a pending partition application that's reliant upon this road dedication. And so we can, as a condition of approval, and we've coordinated with legal counsel and the road department, we can require them to complete that remaining 30 feet and dedicate it on their partition plat. And the reason that they can do that is because it's on the subject property. You can do dedication by plat as opposed to dedication by deed, which is what is having to occur here for those off-property portions of right-of-way.
Very good. I'll move acceptance of the board signature on document number 2024-345 and 2024-407 to accept the deeds of dedication for a public road.
Second.
Is there any further discussion? Commissioner DeBonne,
Yes.
Commissioner Chang,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you, Holly. We're now to item number 11.
Program element 43.
Looks like Emily. Morning.
For the record, my name is Emily Horton, Program Manager for Environmental Health, Preparedness and Engagement. I am here this morning to, I thought Rita was going to be here. I don't know if she is.
Is she online? Is Dr. Bacha online? No? We might be 2 minutes early or something.
Yeah.
We're a little bit early today. How could that happen?
You can come back to it if you want.
Yeah, she was prepared to speak on this. I can probably fumble my way.
Oh, there
through
she
it.
is.
Okay, she's here now.
Here. Oh, there she is.
Yes. Other door. Thank you. I know.
Morning.
Welcome.
We're running a bit early. It's a miracle. Thank you so much for joining us.
Morning.
Hello.
So we are here to move to accept the Oregon Health Authority one-time supplemental funding for program element 23 and extend 1.0 limited duration FTE from June 30th, 2024 to June 30th, 2025.
For the record, my name is Rita Bacho. I'm the program manager for communicable diseases and immunizations. And as my colleague said, we are hoping to get approval to accept about $222,328. These are funds they are supplemental funds that OHA is providing to us for immunization services. As COVID is winding down, the COVID vaccines have become part of the regular immunization schedule. So these funds can be used actually for all types of vaccines, so for broader vaccine initiatives. So we are hoping that if we get approval to receive these funds, we'll be able to extend a 1.0 limited duration FTE to help with immunization services. We've seen some decline in our immunization rates especially for childhood immunizations, about 1% lower than what it was the previous year. So we want to make sure that we are out there promoting immunizations and also educating the public on the importance of getting vaccines. So this person, if approved to be extended from June of 2024 to June of 2025, this person will assist in preparation for vaccine clinics, both within our clinic in Courtney and Redmond and also in the community. So we'll be going out to shelters and other vulnerable populations. This person will also help us during clinic to do translation services. This person is a bilingual person, so he will help with translation services. He will also provide outreach and education to providers, helping them with motivational interviewing and other skills to overcome vaccine hesitancy. This person will also provide education to clients, sometimes one-on-one, or go to businesses to provide education. Also, this funding will support our vaccine partners, such as Partners in Care and other community-based organizations that would help us reach our most vulnerable populations, some of which is long-term care facilities. We hope that this funding will also help during our respiratory season to help us with surge capacity. Usually that's our busiest season of the year. And sometimes we do have to conduct community clinics to shelters and other vulnerable populations. So if we receive these funds, we'll be able to increase our surge capacity during the respiratory season. So some of these are some of the things that we'll be doing with these funds. It would also cover our indirect costs. We've been approved to increase our indirect costs from 10% to 15% starting in October. So hopefully we'll be able to cover a lot of the indirect costs, and we don't need any matching funds for these grants. So we'll be able to carry out a lot of immunization activities around promotion and education, and also increase vaccine uptake.
And looks like this is going on all around the state. There's a kind of a formula funding that's for all 36 counties.
Correct, that is correct. I think they use the birth rate formula, which is also the modernization formula to calculate based on the size of the county and the population.
Yep. Great.
Any other comments?
It's great to have this funding opportunity to expand our immunization efforts. I can move approval to accept OHA or Oregon Health Authority one-time supplemental funding for program element 43 and extend a 1.0 limited duration FTE from June 30th, 2024 to June 30th, 2025.
And I'll second it.
Wouldn't that actually be July 1st?
Yes, that would actually be July 1st. Thank you for catching that.
Yeah, I was thinking like, okay. Thank you, Dr. Bartel. Okay, so there's been a motion, a second. Any further discussion? Commissioner Chang,
Yes.
Commissioner DeBonne,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. So thank you. Thank you for joining us.
That was the most efficient time walking in right as it
Yes.
started.
Do you realize your timing,
No, it worked out good for you. Yeah.
impeccable
you
timing?
weren't late. We were 25 minutes early.
Who would have known? Okay, we're now to item number 12. Good morning, Eric.
Commissioners. Eric Nielsen, Capital Improvement with Deschutes County, Capital Improvement Manager with Deschutes Facilities. Today I'm here to request chair signature on the notice of intent to award a contract to 2KG Contractors Incorporated for the Community Development Building Repairs Project. As you know, over time, there's been a slight separation that has developed between the exterior walls of the building and the building's primary structure. Facilities in the past has done an investigation and together with structural engineer and general contractor conducted a test repair on the northeast corner of the building. And what they found was that during the course of the original construction of the building, clips that attach the exterior wall to the building's primary structural frame were not installed. They weren't in the design. They were not installed as they probably should have been. So this project is a continuation of those initial repairs to address the separation issues throughout the rest of the building and also go around the building on all the north, east, and west elevations, installing clips at the walls between the walls and the floor beams and the roof beams. As part of the repairs, we're also going to install structural steel at window jambs to help transfer load for those exterior walls around the windows so that the walls are no longer settling on the windows. Additionally, in order to make some of the repairs, we have to remove the existing windows. So as part of the project, we'll be replacing windows around all four sides of the building, which ultimately will result in a higher thermal performance as compared to the windows that are installed now. So yeah, this project was publicly advertised and we received 2 sealed bids, with 2KG Contractors being the apparent low bidder. And their total bid was at $539,500. And with the chair signature of this notice of intent to award the contract, the 7-day protest period starts. And at which point, if there are no protests, we can award the contract to 2KG contractors. After the execution of the contract, construction is anticipated to start this summer of 2024. Open it up. Any questions?
Eric, do you know when the building was completed originally?
Yeah, it looks like the final inspections were towards the end of 1997, early 1998. It was 27 years ago.
With these fixes, I mean, does the separation, do you kind of close up the separation, or you just kind of hold it in place so it doesn't separate farther?
Yeah, the plan is to close it back up. So at the initial repair, there was 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch of separation, and they were able to push the wall back in and then attach it. So there's 4 areas where we'll have to go from the outside of the building to attach those clips. And at those areas, we'll suck the wall back in and close up those separations.
Right. I guess my other question is, we absolutely need to do this repair. But where does the funding come from to pay for this? I mean, and I mean, is this just kind of a new facilities cost, or do we have like kind of is there any insurance coverage for a situation like this or anything like that?
So
And here comes Eric.
Hey.
The other Eric.
Good morning. For the record, Eric Kropp, Deputy County Administrator and Risk Manager. When this came up, we did look at insurance. The property coverage does not cover this because this is more of a maintenance issue. So I'm sure Eric can answer where the money's coming from, but I wanted to address the insurance question.
yeah, so it's currently budgeted in FY25 and 24 in our fund 070 for capital maintenance projects.
Thank you.
Well, it was determined the clips should have been there, but it was just a construction transition of information design to building it, right?
Yeah, so the Mike Meyer service building across the parking lot is almost the exact same building, similar construction. Clips were installed there, and in those drawings, they were specifically called out. In the drawings for the CDD building, they were shown but not labeled. So it seems as if it was missed potentially in design, was missed in plan review, missed by the contractor and during inspections.
Eric, do you happen to know how much the one test cost, the test repair?
I don't offhand.
I mean, I was just wondering, this isn't as bad as my husband's building in Santa Monica after that major earthquake. The beams were all sheared, their welds were bad, and they had to get out of it in like 5 minutes one day. So yeah, that was like a new construction project. So this one is actually 26 years old. We're lucky we didn't have a big earthquake. Yes, we are really lucky, in fact. So it sounds like the sooner, what you said, the summer they're going to start?
Yeah, we'll execute a contract and get started this summer. I think lead times on windows will kind of determine the project timeline, but
But they are actually better windows than what are in there currently.
yeah, so they look the same, they're the same profile, they just have a higher thermal performance.
Good. Thank you. Is there any further questions, or do we have a motion?
I'll move approval of the chair signature of document number 2024-416, notice of intent to award contract to 2KG Contractors, Inc. for the Community Development Building Repairs Project.
Second.
Any further discussion? Commissioner DeBonne?
Yes.
Commissioner Chang?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, now we're at item number 13. And it happens to be core.
Look at the team. There we go.
Hello, team. Hi.
Good morning, Commissioners. For the record, Christy Bollinger with Property Management, and we'll go ahead and have our partners here introduce themselves, starting with Captain Bailey.
Good morning, William Bailey, Captain, Deschutes County Sheriff's Office.
Morning, Mike Krantz, Chief of Police, City of Bend.
Morning, Shelby Knight, COIC.
Good morning, Scott Aycock, COIC.
And we also have Chief Blake with Jefferson County Fire and EMS, I believe, online.
Yep. Hi,
Morning,
Jeff.
Jeff.
Jeff Blake, Fire
Um,
Chief, Jefferson County.
Commissioners, we're here today to ask approval for your signature on document number 2024-413, which is an intergovernmental agreement with Central Oregon Intergovernmental Council and various other partner agencies for the Core 3 project. So with that being said, I'm going to hand it over to Shelby and Scott to give further background and also take us through the presentation.
Well, and I'm right in the middle of the Core 3 meetings. I'm on the board, chairing the Core 3 meeting. So I don't know that there's any conflict. Or however we want to document that. I'm a commissioner. This is Deschutes County's land, and I'm at the table on the other side. So just acknowledging that, and we can talk it through as we have this discussion.
Okay. Kim looks like she's happy. Smiling. All right. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Good morning again, Scott Aycock, COIC. I just want to kind of give a quick overview, just to remind everybody, I'm sure you all know, but anybody else watching, et cetera, that COIC is setting the table for this project and doing neutral project management services is the way I would put it. It's not a COIC project. It is a project on behalf of, well, depending on how you want to slice and dice it, 23 to 30 local and state agencies that are engaged in wanting to build this facility together. And so that's the role we're playing. As such, we did initiate the IGA, we did initiate the land use applications, et cetera, but it's on behalf of all these agencies that want to build an emergency services and emergency coordination and public safety training facility. So just a note on that. And I'm going to hand it to Shelby, who's going to give some more info on the IGA.
Yeah, thank you, Scott, and thank you, commissioners. I believe we have a presentation provided as part of the packet. So if someone could pull that up for us.
Can I just ask one quick question before we get going, Shelby?
Yeah.
Christy, because part of our land was not zoned the way we thought it was, is that valuation still at 16,300,000 adequate?
I'm actually going to let Scott speak to that. Him and Shelby have been doing some kind of background work on that. So.
Okay.
Yeah, we actually reached out to the same firm that did the appraisal initially and asked them if they could take a look at that. We're currently kind of back and forthing a scope of work. There's a lot of different ways you can go about doing an appraisal, but we do believe that with the 72 acres on the east side of the property not being in the urban reserve area and therefore also not part of the land use applications that we submitted just for the 228 acres on the west side of the property, if you will, that we should have it reappraised. So we have not done that yet, but we are in the midst of getting that sorted out.
Okay, all right. I just wanted to check my memory. So thank you. Shelby, take it away.
So we do not have a copy of the presentation. They're gonna pull it up.
Perfect.
Okay. Great.
Well, while Christy is pulling that up, I'll just acknowledge this should be a pretty short presentation. Just kind of wanted to highlight for the commissioners and folks here today, the project area and components in particular because of the land dedication from the county, and then some key sort of high level milestones, sort of how we got here, and then an overview of the IGA. So sort of the why, some of the components, current signatories, and then we'll leave some time for questions.
Just make some space here while we're bringing that up. If any of our partners at the table want to say any words regarding this effort today or online, Jeff, but they're really mainly here to answer questions in case any come up that they can speak to, but want to make that space.
I will take a moment why this is coming up and just voice support for the county signing the IGA. This is a rare project where we have a significant number of my radio, where a rare moment where we really have a significant number of agencies involved in a collaboration and partnership that is unique. So a lot of this rests on today, the IGA being approved, and all the other agencies who are part of the IGA process for this project that is also a unique project moving forward and will have significant impact for public safety, for emergency management, and for resiliency within the region. That is that is really unseen right now and very necessary for the future. Have I taken the time?
Just about.
Well, oh, there you go. There.
Christy, you can probably skip through these first slides because again, we talked about sort of an overview of what we're going to cover today, why we're here. Okay, so the current slide is showing the county property. Core 3 is 300 acres on the south side of this larger parent property currently owned by Deschutes County. Again, significant because, as we'll talk about here in a second, the county dedicated this land to the project. It was selected as the most appropriate site for this facility because of its central location. So due to the regional nature of the project being located in Redmond, provides that aspect. It was also selected because of the proximity to the airport and the function that the airport will serve in rescue and recovery operations in a large statewide or otherwise greater disaster. And then it was selected because of the number of contiguous land provided, and then as well as the surrounding land use incompatibility there. Next slide. So this is a zoomed in site concept plan for Core 3. So as Commissioner Adair noted, we've got about 72 acres on the east side of the property that is currently zoned in such a way that we're not utilizing that at this point. We're not proposing to utilize it. So the remaining 200 and almost 30 acres is outlined here. Key things to note are just that this is a phased project. And so really our priority facilities are highlighted and shown in dark blue. Go to the next slide. And this is just an overview of what those facilities will be. Again, phase 1 is an emergency coordination center and flexible classroom space. There's also we're in conversation now with the governor's resilience officer and OEM about how this might serve a continuity of state governance function in the event of a statewide disaster. And then it has an emergency vehicle operator course and driver skill pad, and then a Class B burn building, which is essentially controlled fire training. Next slide. Again, how did we get here? Just some key project milestones. So in September of 2020, the group completed a strategic business plan, and that really set the stage for a number of the things that came after, including future agreements and funding and components of the facility and some of the work that we've engaged since then. We executed an MOU amongst the again, as Scott said, depending on how you slice it, at the time we were counting it as 28 agencies in March of 2022. And at that time, that MOU also indicated that Deschutes County was dedicating the land and the value of that land. In fall of 22, the state legislature invested $9.5 million in capital funds to the project. And since then, we've secured an additional $500,000 through Oregon State Fire Marshal's office as well, which is not captured here. We finalized the IGA that's in front of you all today with the Executive Council in September of 23. We'll talk about what has happened between now and then. And then we are also going through a, for the past 12 to 18 months now, land use entitlements process. There was about 5 or 7 applications that went through. And so we're wrapping that up. It was recently approved or recommended for approval by the City of Redmond Planning Commission at their May meeting. And then design and engineering, we're really gearing up to get started on that process here in early summer. Next slide. Okay, so again, just providing some background of how we got here. Really, what we're here today to discuss with you all is signing on to the IGA. And I think it's really important that we cover, why this agreement is in front of all of our partners currently. So the IGA is meant to replace, again, the 2022 MOU. It's a much more formal agreement, and it really solidified and formalized both CYC's role as the fiscal and project home during the current phase of the project. And again, it says here, until a new governing body is formed, it's really meant to serve as, so the group approved asked CYC to serve as the home of the project during the current stage of development because we were dealing with larger and larger sums of money. We were having to manage consultants, and things were just getting a lot more formal, and we recognized that we needed to really move into a specific structure and agreement. And CYC was well poised, again, as the staff to provide that fiscal administration and project administration. It also formalizes the role and responsibilities of the Executive Council and how they make decisions together. And then it really legitimizes the projects and the folks at the table. So when we go to solicit funding or additional support, it really shows that this is a real thing and provides that confidence. And along those same lines, what's included in the IGA is meant to reflect what we just talked about, sort of the why of why we're here. So it replaces the MOU, provides the governance structure and the relationships among the signatories and with CYC, the roles for the Executive Council, our board, because we are the fiscal home, has a role here, and then CYC staff as the project managers on behalf of the agencies at the table. And then it indicates that future intent to form a purpose-built public safety ORS 190, essentially once the facility is operational. And then it also outlines our annual work plan and budgeting process, and how that ties into CYC's overall budgeting process, really just ensuring that the Executive Council and the project folks have a say in how the budget moves through CYC's overall budget, because this is just one component. Next slide. I'm going to speed through these. Really, we initiated this process in November of 2022. So just acknowledging that it's been a long process and a lot of work to get to where we are today. We're really proud of it. We have gone through a number of partner engagement. We really took the time to make sure all of our partners were sort of engaged and on board throughout this process. And as you can imagine, working with 23 different agencies with different boards or different internal processes, it definitely takes some time to get to where we are today. But ultimately, the Executive Council approved the IGA as final in September of 2023. Next slide. At which time we began confirming intent to sign with all of the signatories and then routing it for signature. Just a quick note, between March and now, there were a number of questions and concerns brought forward through the Deschutes County Council, and we had some meetings with each commissioner individually to discuss those, really specifically acknowledging the land contribution as the county's local funding contribution to the project. I provided this update to the commissioners, but I'll just share it here again, that the Executive Council did vote at their March meeting to acknowledge that land contribution as the county's local funding. And therefore that provides a voting seat for the county as part of the Executive Council for the life of this IGA. And that brings us to today. We're presenting it to you all for consideration. Here's our list of signatories to the IGA. Again, we've got 23 different agencies here, mostly local public safety agencies, but we also have a couple of cities and counties and local municipalities. Next slide. And as Commissioner DeBonne noted, he is the chair for the Core 3 Executive Council. And then we have our co-vice chairs, Chief Mike Krantz and Chief Jeff Blake here today as well. And then Scott, myself, Summers, and one other individual actually who supports us administratively, staff the project. And then we've got our website, core3center.org, if folks want to learn more.
So as a commission, one of the things I remember is this, this parcel has been made available. The history of the gun range out there and other solid waste, there's a mitigation portion of this. So it's just a good fit to be able to pave over for a high-speed pursuit and training course. So, I mean, there's that complementary opportunity there. And I guess, it ended up being a moment of excitement. The sheriff and, captain's here today, but sheriff was right at the table with us. And he's like, well, we're going to donate to this. And I'm sitting at the table and, well, we just donated all this land. So we did kind of get in this spot where we were multiple people at the table trying to show support for it, maybe even writing checks to it. So we needed to get real clear on that, though. So that what we've taken time to do now, acknowledging that land donation is a partner investment at the table currently.
And Shelby, you did say that you had another $500,000 donated to by what, fire?
Yes. The Oregon State Fire Marshal's
Okay.
office provided $500,000 specifically for capital.
Okay.
We also have received 1.75 million in federal earmarks from the FEMA Emergency Operations Center grant program as a contribution. That'll all be design engineering.
And then I think when I met, you also committed to doing, 21st Street? And have you carried on with that commitment?
Yes. So
What's the status of that?
Yes, we had a meeting with the city of Redmond. They had a really strong interest on us expediting the development of 21st Street because it not only would serve Core 3, but also Oasis Village and any other projects that are happening in that vicinity. So we made an agreement to go ahead and expedite that piece. So that design engineering, we're in the midst of reviewing the scope of work for that. We've secured an owner's rep to guide all this construction management type services. So that's Cumming Group. I think that's under contract. I think we're routing it for contract right now. They're already helping us out. So we're going to be expediting design engineering of just the 21st Street piece, as well as some associated utilities that need to come under it. And then in parallel, pulling the trigger on a broader phase 1 design engineering for all those components that Shelby mentioned. That's a little slower. That's on a slower track, but there's no reason to wait anymore. So we're going to get going on that. So we're looking at break ground, depending on how things go with the design and the permitting process, which we can't control the timeline on that, either the fall or the spring, whenever.
Spring 25?
Whenever the construction season opens up.
And you did hear that the state actually reduced the building costs this morning on one of our reports. 1.2% was the only reduction on all the documents we looked at.
You mean the inflationary?
Right. It
wow.
actually, building costs actually
Went
did go
down?
1.2%. Well,
That is so nice to hear.
I highlighted it. Yeah. Well, at least it was down.
Better
because
than 9%.
up. Yes. Like a lot of other things are. Thank you for that update, Scott. I think that's so important. If it really is helpful to the county if we can get 21st Street done sooner. Are there any other, Commissioner Chang?
No questions.
Okay, I believe we need a motion then.
I'll move approval of board signature of document number 2024-413, an intergovernmental agreement with Central Oregon Intergovernmental Council and various partner agencies for the Core 3 project.
And I will second it.
And further discussion. So we will hear about the new appraisal at some point in time. That will come back. But the fact that we did donate the 300 acres is significant. And it's been put into the documents.
It's critical to the project, obviously.
You mean having land? Yeah.
Creates the opportunity.
Yes.
And I would expect it'll be about a month and a half. We'll get those new numbers.
Okay. All right, great. So any other discussion? Commissioner Chang?
Yes.
Commissioner DeBonne?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. So thank you. Sorry we had you waiting this
so
morning.
much.
And you even got lucky number 13, but okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great to see you.
Nice to see you. Other items?
I'll just mention that the West Bend prescribed burn pilot project that I've been talking about for the last several months now is happening right now. They burned 200 acres by the Welcome Station on Cascade Lakes Highway yesterday, and they are scheduled to burn another 400 acres today, which is over the past decade or so, the most, the average that they've been able to implement in that West Bend project area is only a couple hundred acres. So this is all, with yesterday's and today's activity, we are seeing a tripling of past averages. And if conditions hold, if favorable conditions hold, there'll be even additional work next week, a little ways upriver from the city of Bend. So really helping us catch up on prescribed burning activity that we need to help keep our community safe from wildfire.
Well, and yeah, I mean, thank you for your long-term investment in that. I know you've, been working in that field for 20 years or so, and it is an exciting moment to be able to see those true understory burns happen. And those are the very end of a long process, along with the social license to be able to acknowledge that there'll be some smoke out here in the springtime, right as the weather gets good. So this is a moment to celebrate for sure.
And also, I guess, I should add that we would not be able to do this right now without the work of our public health division at the county, and specifically the work of Sarah Worthington to help both communicate out that these burns are happening, and also to help people understand what they can do to protect their health from any smoke impacts. Yesterday was pretty amazing. I mean, I was watching the smoke column, and it was all headed south. I hope that people in Sun River didn't experience significant impacts from that. But in terms of the impacts on the Bend airshed, it was a very fortunate day.
Yeah, as I was driving south, it was highway sign says dense smoke possible, but I think it got pretty well dispersed, and it probably went somewhere, but I didn't see where it went.
I thought they said this morning that the air quality in Bend was incredibly high, and Sisters was actually, I think it's 16 or something. So yeah, it and coming through Tumalo, it loves to land in Tumalo in that dip. So yes. So keep us safe for the long run. Anything else, Commissioner Chang?
No.
Commissioner DeBonne?
Yesterday was the pre-smoke meeting as smoke was being created, but it's the joint meeting with our state, federal partners, local agencies, Red Cross, the health department. Everybody was either in the room yesterday or on a remote call. So that's a little bit of history here in Central Oregon. We've done that for many years. Oregon Living with Fire is our joint group that is Crook, Jefferson, Deschutes, and Klamath. It was kind of coordinated by that. So it was a good discussion yesterday. Oregon State Fire Marshal was here talking about the leader's intent. Forest Service was also at the table. So it was a good meeting. And really the value there is just seeing the names, seeing the people, because if and when a large fire happens, all of a sudden it gets a lot more formal with incident command and who's responding and who has resources. So this was just the pre-season sit down, communicating amongst each other.
Okay. Is that it?
Also, another note, remember our deflection program, House Bill 4002. I mentioned on Monday that I had attended the Eastern Oregon Counties Association meeting. But I think there's some small counties that are wondering what the plan is. And we might, as Deschutes County, be able to offer some help. And I'm just thinking, Holly Harris, maybe talking to a couple of the folks that were even on that line there for the EOCA, because they're saying there's $150,000 available. Supposedly we're supposed to do something with it, but we don't have resources or infrastructure, so we're sure where to put it. And it just might be a good moment to be able to help some smaller counties put it in perspective. As I say, so this is me communicating with the commissioners, letting Nick know that I'd probably like to ask Holly to talk to some commissioners in Eastern Oregon. Yeah, so it's, asking for her to step in.
Yeah, yes, 23 counties originally signed up, and what are we going to do with the others?
Well, and that was kind of it, because Union County's like, well, we're not sure what to do. We heard there's money available, and we go to the meeting. People are way down the path. We're not sure how to get started. And then Wallowa County stepped in and said the same thing. So it was just a couple counties in that situation.
So yeah, there's 13 of them, 13 counties that are outside. And they were saying on the news today that Portland is now at the same overdose rate as San Francisco. So Portland, which is definitely not as big as San Francisco. Yes, I believe last year's monthly overdose rates. But I did have a meeting yesterday with Carly, the executive director of Habitat. It's wonderful. They actually have, I believe, 22 projects, and they did have it open and have the people that had applied qualified. But this is what Carly told me she is really worried about, is that people have no idea what they need to do in order to get their life and finances together. She's really worried about maybe a year or two down the road and how people can do financing and learn about budgeting. And I actually suggested that she reach out to Mid-Oregon Credit Union, because I know they're doing a great program in the schools with kids, giving them an opportunity to do budgeting. Maybe she can form some kind of relationship there, but she just said so many people now are quite behind. And the good news is they've now reduced their mortgages because the interest rates are so high. They had to reduce their mortgages down to $175,000 because the payment itself is, I believe, about $1,350. But to keep it there, they actually had to reduce the principal on the house. It's such a great program. Yeah, I know. So it puts more pressure on the group, but so appreciate them and what they do for our community. And I believe she said that they will be opening up a Restore in Redmond in the near future. So that's nice to hear.
One other thing I didn't mention is that tomorrow afternoon, the Central Oregon Cities organization is going to have their water summit to discuss, how they can ensure water supply reliability for our cities in the future, and at the same time be good stewards of our groundwater resources in the basin. There's I think there's limited room for people to join and in the room and and observe, but they'll be live streaming that meeting, so that anyone who wants to watch can do so.
Great. That's I think at 1:00, isn't it? 1:00.
Do you know of any legislative participation in that? Is Owens and Helm coming?
Representatives Owens and Helm are going to at least visit virtually for part of the meeting.
Yeah, okay. Good.
And if I just may ask, if there will be a majority of the board attending, we would just need to add that to the board's calendar for other meetings where if more than if two or more of you are planning to attend.
I have the sisters economic meeting at 1:30, of course, at the same time.
I'll probably dial in at some point on and off. I don't have a plan for how I'm going to fit it in.
Okay, but so not in person. So we're clear. Good. Okay, great.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We don't have any executive today, I believe. And did you want to add anything next to the?
Just two
agenda?
things. Christy may want to just pop back in on a topic that we discussed Monday afternoon. Hopefully she's on her way over. Since we're running a few minutes over time. Just two other points is, we do have the Negus transfer station, grand opening.
Friday at
ribbon
10?
cutting on Friday morning. So that's exciting. Chair Adair is involved in I would categorize it as an important coordinated houseless response office meeting tomorrow.
Yes, at 11 a.m.
And then next week is budget week. So the board will not be meeting as the Board of County Commissioners, but rather as part of the Budget Committee, beginning at 9 a.m. Monday through Thursday of next week. So we hope people will tune in and pay attention and watch that process. Thank you.
Great. And now we're waiting for Christy.
If she makes it, but if
Christy,
not, we may need to just move on.
she's been here she was here at 8:45. So
Friday morning, I'll be speaking at the Lapine Chamber as a sponsor. So I'm just going to go through topics of the day as a sitting commissioner. But it just fits into getting to Redmond at 10 o'clock. So I'll be getting there right at 10 o'clock or so. Just letting you know.
yes, Christy, you have the floor.
Welcome back.
Or you have the table.
Again, for the record, Christy Bollinger, Deschutes County Property Management. So I was just contacted by Scott Brown, the construction project manager for Bend Redmond Habitat for Humanity. So back in 2018, the county conveyed 2 lots to Habitat up in Redmond on Reservoir and Volcano. And at that time, the lots weren't really buildable for them or in an affordable way because there was no water or sewer infrastructure close to the property. So in 2020, they came to the county and asked if they could sell the lots and use that funding or use those proceeds for future affordable housing projects. And at that time, the boards supported that. So fast forward, they did not sell the lots. They've just been sitting on them. And since that time, water and sewer infrastructure is now available close to the property. So they, as a courtesy, came to the county and asked if the county would support them developing those lots for staff or employee housing. So that's the question in front of you today, is if you would support that use for those properties.
Habitat staff or employee housing?
Correct.
Interesting. Okay.
We did have a conversation yesterday talking about the 11% vacancies of apartments in Bend when I was meeting with Carly, and she was going to share that with her team. She said, well, you can tell it definitely by driving around and seeing the signs, 2 months free rent. So because she did move down from Olympia last year in August, and she's definitely she was going to share that.
Christy, these 2 lots, they don't have all the tax foreclosure kind of issues associated with them, do they?
That's a great question. So they were acquired in 2016 and the county conveyed them in 2018. So right now, I believe we're out of that window, even though we don't know the full outcome of the Supreme Court case and what happened with legislation and now Oregon revised statute. So
There's definitely an argument that it's outside of that window. Obviously, the case law is continually evolving. But I think we have a very strong argument that it's a 6-year window for statute of limitations from when the date that the deed is recorded with the county. So it looks as though we would be outside of that window.
So we don't need to think about that as part of this decision process, at least, right?
I think that's fair to say.
I think it's fair. It's a safe assumption. I think there is no guarantees necessarily.
No guarantees. Yeah. Yes.
So what's the scenario? Habitat, Ben Redmond Habitat owns these properties now. We gave them to them. And they're going to build housing on them for employees associated with Habitat.
Correct.
So then they'd be an asset of the organization under ownership of the organization. Or they're going to make them available for sale to the
Yes, so the employees would own them through.
Oh, okay, the employees would own them. And
Redmond exactly are these lots?
I could send you a map, but one's on Reservoir, one's on Volcano, and they're really close to each other. You can almost throw a stone and hit the other lot. So they're really close to each other.
and those were on the possible auction list, and we just pulled them to give them to these organizations.
That transaction predates me, but I would
That
imagine.
was in 16.
They were acquired in 16 and they were conveyed to Habitat in 2018. I believe.
I don't see any reason not to support this change of use.
So they'd be sold to employees of, and then they'd be out of the ownership of Habitat. Would there be any other history or restrictions, or they just be on the free market at that time?
There's penalties and just like I believe all Habitat programs, there's penalties if the homeowner sells the property with prior to certain dates. So I believe the program
Be a
being
runway associated with it. Basically.
yes.
Like their 5-year breakdown.
I believe so. I just don't know the exact timeline for that program, but I know that when Scott Brown reached out, he did say there would be a penalty for early if those property owners sold early. So I believe it's sort of conforming to what their process is with any other homeowner, just happens to be in place.
Well, we don't know. Yeah, what's going to happen in the next 5 or 10 years? You think could be a point where housing drops for a while too, but that's international economy. I'm supportive of proceeding with their ask.
So do we need a motion?
I would suggest a motion for.
Okay. So
How would you phrase that motion?
Move approval to allow Ben Redmond Habitat for Humanity to utilize do you have the addresses of the property?
Give me a minute. I can.
Okay.
they're on Reservoir and Volcano, a stone's throw from each other. To quote Christy.
1 second here. Uh, 4342 Southwest Volcano Avenue in Redmond and 4320 Southwest Reservoir Drive, Redmond.
To utilize those two properties for employee housing.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? Commissioner Chang,
Yes.
Commissioner DeBonne,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes.
Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you so much, Christy. It's good to hear that they're thinking of their employees getting a home, getting a mortgage instead of rent. So, any other? Okay, so we will not have a meeting next week. We will be meeting the following week and on Wednesday.
Budget meeting Monday morning.
Yes, 9 a.m. Is it going to start at 9?
9 a.m.
Okay. All right. Great. All right. Thank you so much. We're adjourned. Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you.